The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. The best of Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken.
This is the best of Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken on AM 950. Tonight we're going to play parts of interviews from 3 different guests. We've had some amazing people appear on the show, and we think that they should be heard from again. Enjoy the show. Tonight we are talking to the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes, Jeff Mudgett. We're talking about a lot of interesting stuff tonight. Feel free to call in 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, or you can leave a comment if you're watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. Just put a comment in if you have a question for Jeff. Just a little bit of kind of backpedaling here a little bit. Just the Dear Boss letter that we're talking about here, which I believed is written by Jack the Ripper. It was a letter written in red ink, was 2 pages long, contained several spelling and punctuation errors. The overall motivation of the author was evidently to mock investigative efforts to allude to future murders. And it was sent to the Central News Agency of London on the 25th of September, 1888. So, Jeff, you had mentioned that people had come to you who believe that that letter could possibly have been written by your great-great-grandfather, H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, and when as you realize, Jack the Ripper is the true crime mystery of maybe of all time, and it's known. The phrase is known by billions around the world. And whenever there's a new movie or a new book, it seems they all do really well. But anyway, so they came to me with this material. They wanted to share this and wanted me to help each other, and they had some experts, handwriting experts, come back with conclusions, opinions about how similar the handwriting was between Holmes and the Dear Boss letter.
Wow.
Which you characterized excellently, and but it had always had this strange little tint to it about how it had been a journalistic hoax, possibly, never the writing of the actual killer. And so it had we had some hurdles to get over, but having practiced that type of law, I knew that the Supreme Court had just come up with a killer decision about handwriting comparisons, expert opinions, and what was required before something like that would actually be determined a fact. So, I took the material these fellas had given me up to the University of Buffalo, to an organization called the Cedar Fox. And these scientists there were working for the FBI and the Department of Justice, the Post Office, the Treasury, and they had been hired to create a computer program in order to compare handwriting. Mm-hmm. So when I contacted them, they were eager to see what I had. We flew out there, took the material to them, and they agreed to run it, the Dear Boss letter, with my great-great-grandfather's handwriting through their computers. Well, Greg, and I can show any of your listeners this, the ones that are that interested. The numbers came back 97%.
Wow. Ooh.
Which everyone there, their jaws dropped.
Yeah.
We were all shocked because we all kind of thought this was all just a hoax, a kind of a joke, something. Well, now we were into something different. And once that information got out about that kind of number, I was contacted by the people at TED Talk, who asked me to give a talk in Vancouver, British Columbia, about whether the handwriting was my great-great-grandfather's or not. And so once that TED Talk was a huge success, and once that was done, then I was contacted by the people at History to do a miniseries called American Ripper about how my co-host and I, she was Amaryllis Fox, she was an ex-CIA operative.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were trying to make us look kind of like Scully and Mulder.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. But so then we had an 8-part miniseries in 2017, tracking down my great-great-grandfather all through the United States and through London, and seeing if we could prove it true. But what we came up with was a lot of great numbers, a lot of good evidence, a lot of material that has yet to be disputed by
Sure.
the FBI, by Scotland Yard, anyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but as you know, with anything Jack the Ripper, it's very difficult to prove anything that society would be willing to accept is the true answer.
I agree. But, yeah. You know, it's interesting, Jeff, that, from and I'm by no means a Holmes expert at all, but from what I've seen, that it kind of fits in with your great-great-grandfather's veracity of liking to write. He seemed to like to write about himself and like make himself known. So a letter like the Dear Boss letter doesn't seem to be too far of a leap for if people are really thinking that Holmes was Jack the Ripper.
No, you're exactly right. While after being found guilty of murder, he was incarcerated in Moyamensing Prison in Pennsylvania, and he was immediately contacted by the Hearst Corporation,
Mm-hmm.
the big publishing house, who paid him an amazing amount of money for the time in 1896 if he would write his memoirs right there in prison. And so you're right. He liked to write. He was good at it.
Yeah.
He had no problem going outside the lines as far as truth was concerned, but quite often. But he was a writer, and so the this discovery that I had at 40 years old about who my great-great-grandfather was. And when you think about great-great-grandfather, you're thinking about my grandfather's grandfather.
Yep.
And which gets it pretty close. And, while the rest of the family had gone on with their lives, I was obsessed in finding out what was going on here. And I was certainly being contacted by all the TV people, all the TED Talk people, all those people want me to write a book now all of a sudden. And so it was a fun thing to do. But as I write about in the book, Greg, and this is more to your subject matter,
Mm-hmm.
my life started changing. I started developing this disorder, a mental condition. I started having blackouts, which resulted in dreams. Very strange dreams all of a sudden, nothing I'd ever had before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to the medical science people, my neurologists,
Yeah.
they diagnosed it as that I had come up with a case of epilepsy, and I was having seizures.
Oh.
And these seizures had the result of me losing track of where I was for a period of time and having these dreams, which continually began to be visits from you-know-who. And I started having visions and voices and secrets about the real story. and which the doctors all told me, Greg, were normal for epilepsy. They were normal for seizures. That's what happens in those things. They can also be violent. You can also, actually, people die from grand mal seizures. And, so that was a big change to my life. And so I started thinking about the paranormal. I started thinking about the supernatural. I started thinking about ghosts, which I'd never done before. And falling back on, what the rationalization that the physicians had given me. But we kept our investigation up, but I just kept struggling with that condition that had suddenly emerged. And perhaps the ultimate experience and my first true encounter, if I could give that as my opinion. As you know, it's very difficult. Has anyone ever proven they've seen a ghost so that to the
where everyone would believe, right? I mean, that's what it always comes down to, right? That we know what our situations, we know what our experiences are. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to believe what we're saying. Yeah.
No, and so we had become the team, and I had developed an investigatory team. Even that's how fascinated people around the country. I imagine we've got a couple listeners from the team on listening right now to your show.
That's cool. That'd be cool.
And great, very intelligent, hardworking people that will help me whenever we find anything new about the subject. But and very talented too. But so we became fascinated with the subject of the murder castle, which, if you don't mind, I'll fill your listeners in a little bit.
Please do.
About in the late 19th century, 1890s, there was the Chicago World's Fair, which was the event of the time for the entire world. I mean, you had Einstein there, you had Edison, you had Tesla, you had these incredible people there, they're dedicating their new discoveries, and millions of people from around the world visited Chicago in this. And if you Google it up, you'll see the pictures of it there on the waterfront are incredible.
They are incredible. I've seen them. Yeah, absolutely.
And down the road, Greg, 2 miles down the road, a subway train, I don't know if they called it a subway train back then, within walking distance, 2 miles, a short stretch of the legs, was Holmes building his murder castle. And with his pharmacy and with his offices and with his second floor hotel rooms for people that needed a place to stay overnight during the fair. And then with a basement down below, which books have been written over and over and over about, and I never got to see the actual basement. But the stories about it I don't know. Have you ever read Eric Larson's book, The Devil in the White City?
I haven't read the book, but I've read descriptions about the murder castle.
Yeah, and he's got great descriptions of what was going on down there in that basement and during the fair. So, and the paranormal world was pretty convinced that the post office there for some strange reason, Greg, I've never had an answer for this one. I've had FOIA requests. I've gone back to D.C. to see numerous people, but never had much of an answer on this about why the federal government would have bought the murder castle, torn it down, knowing that there had been unsolved murders committed there that the Chicago police had admitted that they'd never solved, and then built a U.S. post office, sort of, adjacent to it.
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, up against, they bordered each other right there on the property. And And the stories from the post office employees were how the basement was haunted. Well, that stuff was fascinating me all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And I write about it in the book, about that first visit into the post office, getting permission to go down into that basement to see what we could find.
You are listening to the best of Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to ghostboxradio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950.
The best of Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken.
Now, speaking of the paranormal community, we've got Bobby J. Gallo here. Now, Bobby, I'm going to set the scene for you, okay?
Okay.
A crowded room and in Connecticut, and I'm just looking, and all of a sudden my eyes, they lock with yours. And we found each other at the Warren Convention. Huh? That could be book 3, Family Spirits 3, The Return of Greg. I don't know. But I didn't expect to see you there, actually.
It was, and I'm going to tell you, that was an unbelievable experience. And, some mutual friends of ours with the talk show were right next to us.
Yes.
During the convention. And my wife and I were not prepared for what was going to happen. We got a booth at this convention. It was the first one.
Yep.
And we figured, let's bring the books and see if we could sell a few copies. As soon as the doors opened, our booth was flooded with people who knew who we were, who watched our web series. There was literally a line of people. And this live broadcast, which was right next to us,
mm-hmm.
They couldn't believe it. They didn't know who we were. And they watched this phenomenon happen. We literally sold out of every single book during that convention, including my dog-eared copy that I didn't want to part with. We sold everything. We sold the table. And my wife and I were totally shocked. We weren't prepared for it, but it did, it was, we've developed this following over the years, but sometimes you really don't know how big it is until something like that. And even just recently at a Turkey Hill, which is like a 7-Eleven type of thing out here in Pennsylvania, I walked in and one of the associates at the counter knew who I was and recognized me. So that's some things you're not prepared for.
No, absolutely. And I remember that they're trying to buy the clothes off your back. I mean, that was ridiculous. I mean, it was just like, I don't know if I want all of that, but hey, whatever. And it's funny because we were able to catch up, and then the folks at the radio show, Mr. David Taylor and Christy Grissom. I mean, we became really good friends after that. That
awesome people.
Was really incredible. It's one of those great. We all went out for dinner that night. And I don't think I laughed so hard in my life. We had such a great time.
We had a blast. We really did. Yep.
I remember a couple of years ago, I was getting a haircut at the really fine establishment known as Great Clips. And you shouldn't be surprised if you see me, right? I was like, that's Great Clips. They're actually really good over there. I've been going there for years, but I had this stylist, and she was just kind of staring at me, and they're like fumbling around. She has shears, and she's fumbling around with them, and I'm like, are you okay? And she's just like, she just says to me, I know who you are, and I'm like, who am I? What do you mean? And she's just like, I follow you on Facebook. I listen to your show. And it was like, okay, well, that's cool. Is this going to affect, like, you cutting my hair, or are you going to put gashes in me? Because she was fumbling, And it's, it's frightening. I'm sorry. It's frightening if you're trying to get a haircut and like she's knocking over the thing that has all the combs in it, that has the liquid in it and stuff. It's like, I don't think she was nervous about me. I think she's just nervous disposition. And then the added layer of me just kind of took it a little bit over the top or something. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting how that works sometimes. And people get to know you, and they, especially, the work that you and I do in the sense of media, right? That people have this idea of how we are. And
Hmm.
I try, and I think you do too, based on what I've seen of you, Renee, the family, that there shouldn't be any difference between what you're hearing, the Greg you're hearing, the Bobby you're watching versus the
Right.
real people.
I agree with that. And frankly, if somebody meets me on the street, I'm exactly the same as I am right now. So, and I agree. There's no pretense here, and there's certainly no ego, because I do not consider myself a celebrity in any sense of the word. In fact, I got shirts printed as a joke that say "semi-famous ghost hunter," because if anything, I might be semi-famous. I wouldn't consider myself famous by any stretch.
I'm semi-sweet. That's where I'm at.
There you
I'm
go.
semi-sweet. But if the difference is, of course, if they met you in person, you'd probably do a magic trick for them.
I would, because I was a professional magician for 15 years.
So, okay, I was going to ask this last segment. You took about you said like a 20-year break in paranormal investigating, right?
Right.
How was it getting back into it? Was it flawless? Was there like what were your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing I had to do was familiarize myself with current techniques. But I mean, I will tell you that, what I was doing 20 years prior was not all that different than what these guys were doing on TV.
Hmm.
It's just that we were using, a pocket cassette recorder, 35 millimeter camera, a candle, a key on a piece of string that acted as a pendulum, and one of those big VHS recorders that go over your shoulder.
Amazing.
I mean, that's what we used.
Yeah.
But other than that, trying to connect with spirit, isn't all that much different. But I will say that some of the technology today, like some of the things that Gary Golka has developed, have really facilitated us in being able to make that connection with spirit when we're on an investigation. So, I do use some of that current equipment as well.
Now, I mean, I know that you heard the interview with Gary that I had done, and
I did.
that Spirit Box, the Pro, that's a different level. That is truly a
I
different
mean,
level.
he's a different level. I
That's
mean,
fair. Yes, very true.
honestly, the man is a genius.
Yeah.
And his intention, his motivation behind what he does validates everything, in my opinion. He's not out there for the quick buck. This man is
Hmm.
out there because he wants to reach the other side. And I believe that he's accomplished it. Right now, it's just a matter of refining it.
He's close. He's extraordinarily close, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
He
Absolutely.
he is, and I know that's probably hurtful for other people who might be listening that are, they're doing some good work creating their
Yeah.
own devices and stuff. But when we had him on and listening to Spirit tell him how they communicate with him through the box, that's a different level. That's something completely different.
Absolutely. Absolutely amazing.
Now,
Yeah.
for you, when you when you were using that old type equipment, the
Hmm.
analog tape, everything else, do you miss those? Do you ever bring those? I mean, you talked about the Sony camcorder, the Handycam, but
Correct.
do you ever bring in any of the other like cassettes, or do you ever think about trying 35 millimeter film? I know it's expensive, but I always feel like that there's room to kind of go back to some of those methods.
Well, I certainly use things like the pendulum still.
Oh yeah,
Um,
oh yeah.
and things like that.
Hmm.
The only reason I don't use analog tape is because we've caught EVP on digital
Yep.
that is so mind blowing that I just don't feel I can get that on an analog tape. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but when you find something that really works, you kind of tend to stick with it. And we're always trying new pieces of equipment and new theories and new gadgets. But boy, I'll tell you, I mean, we have an RCA handheld digital EVP recorder that has just performed over and above. One of our most famous EVPs was caught by accident. I forgot to turn it off.
Okay.
And Renee and I are tripping over gravestones trying to get out of an old cemetery at night. And she's laughing, and you could hear me laughing, and she's laughing as we're trying not to trip over footstones. And all of a sudden, a female voice comes in out of nowhere that says, "Come back." And then
nice.
10 seconds later, "Don't leave now." As clear as we're talking now. So haunting that when people hear this EVP, they're up for a week if they're not a paranormal investigator. And that's an episode called "We Were Not Alone." So you can actually hear that EVP.
You know what we need to do, Bobby? If
What's
you're up for it, we should at some point soon, if you're up for it, have you back, and we could play some of the
Absolutely.
evidence that you have that I think that will entice people to check out the web series. The thing about some of that, for the lack of a better term, retro equipment, is that it's expensive and it's wasteful if you do it properly, right? Because
Right.
theoretically, if you're using analog tape, you should not, in my opinion, not only reuse the tape, but you should also not use side B. You only
Right.
do one side of it because the bleed through could happen and all that other
Yes.
stuff. And that's a lot of, that's just a lot of work. And same with, it's so easy to take a burst on your camera of
Right.
something opposed to paying $30 for some film and then getting it developed. And same with the Polaroid and all that stuff. Now, Sam says about your EVP, she's like, I'd love to hear that EVP. So what episode? Because it's on an episode, right?
It is. The episode is entitled "We Were Not Alone." And you can go to ghosthunter.ws. You'll see a link for our web series right there. Right now we have our whole web series on a platform called Odyssey, which we really love. And if you go to "We Were Not Alone," not only will you hear the EVP, but I play it several times, and I even amplify it through Audacity, so it's crystal clear. It is haunting. So that's the one.
Yeah, don't wait for us to have Bobby back on. Go check out the web series. Now, Bobby, do I have this right here?
You do.
Okay. So, folks, this is where you need to go, ghosthunter.ws to check out the episodes. As we talk, I think we talked about this one of the last times that we spoke, because I had done a web series, and I had, you've done 80, I've done 4 episodes, so we're pretty close in terms of how many that we've each have done. How long does it take you to do post-production on that? I mean, just your thoughts on like how do you want to actually, creating it and to have the look that you want it to have?
It's a really great question, because what I want a lot of people to know is that we edit out so much footage. And, I would, because I try to get the episodes down to about 20 minutes, because I just, even though I want people to see the process and I want people to feel like they're really investigating with us, you still don't want to have 2 hours of dead time, pun intended. You want to have a little bit of process, but then you want to get to the meat and potatoes where we actually get the communication. So I would say that it probably takes me about a week to do an episode, and that's even including. Now I try not to put a lot of music in the early days. I kind of did, but I've backed off on that a lot. But I do like to have a little bit of atmospheric music sometimes, just to bring people in. And, of course, we have, really great titling, if I do say so myself. But most of the video proper is really going to bring you in where you're going to feel like you are standing right with us in the investigation.
Yeah.
And once again, and I say this over and over and over, everything you see is real. When you see evidence, it's real. If you go to the episode called The Hidden Grave of Thomas Sprott, you will see our most famous piece of evidence, which is a full body apparition. And you will not only see the apparition, but you're going to see how it was caught. My oldest daughter with an IR camera, infrared, taking shots and seeing this thing actually form next to me, and the entire time freaking out, saying, "Dad, you got to see this." And I'm trying to be Mr. Professional saying, no, honey, we'll do evidence review later. She's like, "No, you got to see this now." And you'll see a cloud form in front of Renee, sucking energy out of her EVP recorder, getting larger and larger until it's standing right next to me with a cloak, a collar, absolutely stunning. It's called The Hidden Grave of Thomas Sprott, and that's probably our most famous piece of evidence.
And once again, and we'll go over this a couple times, but you go to ghosthunter.ws to see all the episodes there, and don't just stop at the ones he's talking about. Give them all a watch. You are listening to the best of Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to ghostboxradio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950.
The best of Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken.
We have MK Davis with us, and he's been doing a lot of work on the Patterson-Gimlin film, the famous Bigfoot film that was shot in 1967. Also, like we said last segment, you had mentioned that Todd Gatewood was helping you, came to some conclusions. He's actually, at least he was, hopefully still is, listening as well. And Todd, if you want to come on the program at some point down the line, I'd be more than happy to have you on. MK, I have a more of a comment, I guess, really, from Ernie Pack. He says, "There's just a brief image of the bottom of the creature's foot. That's what I wished I could see more clearly. It would be very difficult to mimic that with a suit or a costume." And it's funny because that caught my attention today too when I was watching a few of these YouTube uploads of that film.
Well, let me see what I can find on that. I have lots of material. If I could get one that's got the very clear image of the foot bottom. I actually have a cast right here. Let's see here.
For those of you who are just listening on the radio and you're very interested in this, I bet you wish you were watching the live stream video of this right now, because MK is holding up a cast from that film.
That's the foot right there. You can see it's backed up a little bit.
That's incredible.
It's very, very flat-footed. Like me, I'm very flat-footed. Mm-hmm. But it's a pretty good sized foot. They get bigger, but this is Mrs. Bigfoot. You move up to Mr. Bigfoot, it'll be a good bit bigger.
How long after the film was shot did they take that cast?
This was taken that very day.
Wow.
Well, no, I take that back. It could have been taken. Patterson took a couple, but later on, Robert Titmus went back in there and took some more. I think this is one that Patterson took because he chose the very best looking ones, mm-hmm. and not necessarily the most valuable scientifically.
Okay.
The ones with the flexion, at the bottom of the foot, bending and moving. Even though they weren't as aesthetic, they were still. They didn't look as good as this one.
Yeah.
So they picked those up later. Some other people that came in there and did that.
So it's absolutely incredible. And the film or the video that I saw that you had put out about 2 years ago, what I thought was really interesting is that you had focused on that she had something that was, I don't know, attached or whatever to her left side, and it's bigger than her hand, but at least at the time of the video, no, you can't really tell what it is, but there is something there.
Yeah. I found it in 4 places in the film. It's in one place where it comes back far enough, you can see that it's not being held by the left hand, it's being steadied by the left hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's suspended on a lanyard around her neck.
Sure.
And you can see that in several of the Chrome prints. They're pretty good quality. You can see it. So whatever she's got there on her left side that she holds, he keeps it from swinging with her left hand. You don't have but a minute of film,
mm-hmm.
So you try to extrapolate all you can from it. When I find something like that, I publish it. People can make of it what they want, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. It follows along with her. And, it's conjecture to try to figure out what it is, I guess, in a sense. But you got to wonder, is it some kind of satchel or something? And is that like a look at the inner workings of their society in some ways? If she's out with something and perhaps that she needs something to put other things in or something. I don't know.
Well, in days of yore, they had what they call a parfleche.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just basically it's kind of a pouch. It could be a pouch. It could be just something you fold. You put your things in it and you fold it and tie it up. Or it could be a satchel, like you said.
Yeah.
Still a parfleche.
Mm-hmm.
It's for your things, which whatever she had was fairly heavy because the way it swung, on the left side in relation to her steps.
Mm-hmm.
She was constantly having to correct it and hold it. She was trying to keep it on the opposite side of her body. So whatever she had, she must have considered it to be something of value.
It's so interesting. What was the what was the reaction to the film when it was seen by the public in 1967?
Well, they showed it they were primarily interested in scientists watching it.
Yeah.
Scientists weren't too impressed because they weren't watching what we have today to watch. They weren't watching the stabilized form, made from the very best images. And they were watching a copy of a copy of a copy that was in shaky and grainy and dark. When you copy a positive film, you copy positive to positive, you end up increases in contrast.
Mm-hmm.
It's boosted, and so all your brights get brighter and all your darks get darker. And by that time, they had pretty much just showing a silhouette.
Okay.
Couldn't really tell much, and I'm trying to be fair to the scientists because these men are saying, well, we want you to watch this film and we want you to believe it. But it was just a silhouette. You can look behind me, and that's that's what was on the master. See on the wall behind me?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a long ways from a silhouette. So, I said at the beginning of my inquiry, I said that that there has to be a better version of the film, because you can't get a good frame from a bad film. And all I'd ever seen was the shaky, grainy, dark. So when these there's a couple of frames that they essentially leaked out when the internet first became prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you what, the internet has been the receiver of a lot of leaked images since, not just from the Patterson film, but from a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw it, I knew it had been treated the way you would treat an astrophoto if you were trying to get contrast out of it. So that's what intrigued me, was that someone was working on this really great frame to try to make it better. And so I began my inquiry, and so it ends up with stuff like you see back there on the wall. It's just one of the fantastic images. And I have Todd Gatewood's image. Can I call that one up?
Yeah,
here?
please do.
Hold on here.
And if you're just joining us, we have on MK Davis, who has been spending a great deal of time trying to get more clarity out of the Patterson-Gimlin film, which is, of course, the amazing Bigfoot film from 1967. And you all know the one we're talking about, the one that the Bigfoot creature, she is walking just in the open, basically, and kind of looks back at the camera. And it's incredible, and seeing the work that has been done on it is one of those things that it just kind of, to me, kind of like the Reuter film for JFK. Love to be able to get the best quality, to get a better look at what was happening there. And MK, the stuff that I saw in those videos were really, really incredible.
Okay, I'm going to just hit my share button, and I think you have to do something over there on your end, don't you?
Well, I don't know what, but we'll take a look. Let's see here. Settings. Welcome to learning how to use StreamYard live on the air. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. I am not seeing what I need to do, because you should be able to go into present and I think share, quite honestly.
Yeah, I've got all that done. My screen says entire screen is sitting here in front of me.
Yeah, because I'm not
share. And I hit the button. But you've got to okay it.
Yeah, I don't see it anywhere. I don't see where I even need to do that, to be very honest. Let's see here. Yeah, this is good times right here. Let's see if I can share screen, slides, video.
You should be down here on the menu down there.
Yeah, on the menu I have present, and then share screen. That's for my own sharing of the screen, which I am unable. That I don't have anything to share. I'm looking in settings. Let's see if we can find in general here. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not seeing what I need to do on here, and I apologize for that.
Well, that's okay. Maybe I can send you something through the messenger.
Sure.
And then you can put it up.
Sure, I can.
I have the same picture, but I have it with a watermark on it. So let me find that one.
All right. So what we're doing, and that's the fun thing about this, folks, is that we're able to take a look at some of these amazing imageries. And once again, for those of you who are listening on the radio, this is where you'll want to go seek out. Go to Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken on Facebook. If you're not able to do it while we're doing it live, go back and rewatch, and you'll see some of this imagery that we are going to be showing here in a second. It's really, really very cool stuff, I have to admit. And
okay, I got that. I got the watermark. Okay.
All right.
Here we go.
All right. And it'll take me a second because I need to send it to a different computer, because it's never easy, MK Davis. It's never easy just to send it to where I'm at. Okay. Oh yeah. Look at. Holy cow. That's.
Now, when you get that up full screen, then you'll almost choke.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so good.
I'm going to take a quick. I'm going to send it to my station computer right now. It's going to take me just a second here, as we do it. And once again, folks, you're going to want to check this out if you're interested in this stuff. I've never seen that any more clear. So I'm going to go over here now. I got to tell you all what I'm doing step by step, because otherwise it'll just be quiet as I'm trying to figure it out. And this is really something. Let me get here real fast. And of course, every station computer is very slow. I have never seen anything like this before. I'm going to be very honest.
Well, before Todd came along, I had neither. I was so amazed.
You are listening to the best of Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to ghostboxradio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook. Look us up at Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. And finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken.